All right, so we're back and ready to deep dive into some really fascinating stuff that you sent in.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah, this video, it's called Overcome These 9 Bad English Learning Habits. And,
Yeah.
there's so much in here. I feel like we could talk about each one of these for like a whole episode, but
Mhm.
we're gonna try to distill the gold for
Yeah.
you and really give you some actionable things that you can do to improve your English learning habits.
Absolutely. I think these are really common habits, and they all come from that good place of wanting to learn, wanting to improve,
Yeah.
but they end up kind of backfiring a little bit.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. The first one that they talk about in the video is overusing translation apps.
Mm.
And I've been there, you want to know what a word means right away. You don't want to
Yeah.
have to like look it up or think about it too much. So
Yeah.
you just pop it into Google Translate or whatever.
Yeah, it's so easy to do now.
So
But it really does keep you from developing that fluency. 'Cause
yeah,
you're always going back to your native language instead of actually learning to think in English.
that's such a good point. And it's like you never really fully immerse yourself.
Yeah.
You're kind of always translating in your head.
Right. And sometimes those direct translations aren't exactly right anyway.
Yeah, they sound a little weird.
Yeah, they're not natural.
Right.
So,
So what would be a better approach?
well, the video recommends switching to an English-only dictionary, and I think that's a really good idea.
Okay.
And when you come across a new word, don't immediately look it up. Try to guess the meaning from context.
Oh, I like it that. That's a good idea.
It's like a little puzzle.
Yeah.
It's like a brain workout.
Yeah.
And another good tip is if you do need to look up the word, don't translate it. Try to explain it in English.
Okay.
So, like, instead of translating the word amused, you could say, amused means that you're feeling happy and entertained by something funny.
I like that. I think that would help it stick in your brain better, too.
Yeah.
Because you're really, like, thinking about the actual meaning.
Right, and you're connecting it to other words that you already know.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're building those connections in your brain.
That's awesome. Okay, so moving on to the next one. This one kind of surprised me. Memorizing advanced words.
Yeah.
Now, you would think that, having a big vocabulary would make you sound more fluent.
Right, you'd think so.
But the video says that that's actually not the case.
It's not. It's a really common misconception. People think that to sound really smart and impressive, they need to use all these big words.
Yeah.
But native speakers don't really talk like that.
No, not at all.
Fluency is more about clear, natural communication.
Yeah.
It's not about showing off.
And I've been guilty of this myself, trying to like use a big word that I barely even understand just trying to sound impressive, and it probably just sounded awkward.
Probably, yeah.
So what's a better way to go about this?
Well, I think focusing on the most common words is really the way to go.
Okay.
Because those are the words that native speakers use all the time.
So I should ditch my like flashcards with all the crazy words?
Yeah, the obscure words.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to just memorize lists of words, learn new words in context.
Okay.
So see how they're used in sentences and phrases.
Like in real conversations?
Yeah, in real life situations.
Okay.
That's how you're going to remember them and be able to use them correctly.
So instead of, trying to use a word like perspicacious,
Right.
I should just say sharp or observant.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's much more natural.
Much more natural. All right, so the next one, this is kind of a personal struggle for me. Grammar obsession.
Ah, yes.
I used to get so caught up in trying to get every single grammar rule perfect that it would just completely paralyze me when I would try to speak.
It's a very common thing, is
Yeah.
that analysis paralysis. But you have to remember that native speakers, they don't think about grammar rules when they're talking.
Right. It's amazing to me how they can just like
They just speak.
and it all just comes out perfectly.
It just flows, yeah.
Like they don't have to stop and think about, if they're using the present perfect or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just there.
It's intuitive.
Yeah. So how do we get to that point?
Well, instead of getting bogged down in all the rules,
Yeah.
try to focus more on patterns and phrases
Okay.
and absorb the grammar naturally through exposure to real English.
So like instead of studying a textbook all the time,
Yeah,
I should be like watching TV shows and
exactly.
listening to podcasts.
Podcasts, movies, music, anything that you enjoy.
Okay.
Just surround yourself with the language.
All right. So that kind of leads into this next one, passive learning only. I love watching shows in English,
Yeah, it's fun.
but I always wonder, like, is that really helping my speaking skills?
Well, it's a good start. But listening and speaking are really two different skills.
Yeah, that's true.
You can understand everything perfectly when you're watching a show.
Yeah.
But then when it comes time to actually speak yourself, you might freeze up,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
I've been there.
Big time.
You have to activate that knowledge. You have to actually speak.
So how do I go from like passively understanding
Yeah.
to like actually being able to speak?
Well, make it a habit to speak every day, even if it's just to yourself.
Okay.
Describe your day out loud. Repeat phrases that you hear in podcasts.
Okay.
Have imaginary conversations in your head.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, just anything to get your mouth moving and your brain thinking in English.
I like that it kind of takes the pressure off too.
Yeah.
Because you're not actually having to
Right.
talk to another person. You can
Yeah.
just like practice in your own head.
Exactly. Just get that practice.
Okay, and there's this other technique that I've heard of called shadowing.
Yes.
Have you ever? That's a really good one.
Tried that?
Yeah, so basically you listen to a native speaker
Hmm.
and you try to copy their pronunciation and their rhythm as closely as possible.
It's like you're their shadow.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
and there's actually a neurological basis for this. When you mimic someone, you're training your brain to process the sounds of the language more naturally.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. So it can really help you to improve your pronunciation and your intonation.
Okay.
And it can also help you develop a more authentic accent.
So it's not just about speaking, it's about speaking well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about writing, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's another important part of fluency.
So like journaling.
Journaling, writing emails,
Okay.
posting on social media, even anything to
Yeah.
get that practice of putting your thoughts into English.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah,
And it helps with your grammar, too.
absolutely.
Because you have...
You have to think about the sentence structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure everything is correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've talked about translation apps. We
Yeah.
talked about vocabulary
Mm-hmm.
and grammar.
Yep.
What else is on the list? Well, there are a few more things.
Yeah, there's more coming up. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break.
Okay, so moving on to the next bad habit on the list. It's memorizing words without context.
Ah, yes. The classic word list.
Right, like we've all seen those lists of, vocabulary words.
Mm-hmm.
But how much do they actually help?
They can be helpful to a certain extent, but the problem is that words don't really exist in isolation.
Yeah, they need context.
They need context. Exactly. If you just memorize a word without understanding how it's used in a sentence,
Right.
then you're not really going to be able to use it effectively in your own speaking or writing.
It's like having all these ingredients but not knowing how to make a meal out of them.
Exactly. It's like having all the pieces of a puzzle but not knowing how they fit together.
Yeah, so what's a better approach?
Well, the key is to learn words in context.
Right.
So instead of just memorizing a word, like run into...
Learn it as part of a sentence like, I ran into my friend at the wall.
Oh, I see.
So now you have a situation, you have a context for that word.
Yeah, it makes more sense that way.
It makes more sense and it's more memorable.
Yeah.
And pay attention to how words are used in real conversations, in movies, in books.
Yeah.
Notice the way that native speakers combine words.
Right.
And that will help you to develop a more natural sense of how to use those words yourself.
Okay, so context is key for building a vocabulary that you can actually use.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that brings us to the next bad habit, which is sticking to comfortable vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I am so guilty of this one.
I think we all are.
I tend to overuse really basic words like very and good and bad.
Right.
Because they're just easy and safe, but it makes my English sound kind of boring.
It does. It makes it sound a little bit flat.
Yeah, a little bit flat.
And it doesn't really allow you to express yourself fully.
So how do we break out of that habit?
Well, first of all, you have to become aware of the words that you're overusing. So start paying attention to your own speech and notice if there are any words that you tend to use all the time.
Okay.
And then once you've identified those words, start looking for more descriptive synonyms or phrases that you can use instead.
Okay, so like instead of saying very cold,
Right.
I could say freezing.
Exactly. Or instead of saying very tired, you could say exhausted.
Yeah. Or I'm beat.
Yeah, I'm beat. That's a good one.
Right.
So just little changes like that can make a big difference in how you sound.
It's like adding spices to your language
Exactly.
to make it more interesting.
And get more flavorful.
More flavorful, yeah.
And more precise as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next one. This is not asking questions when you're confused.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, and I think we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're in a conversation and you don't want to interrupt.
Right?
Or you don't want to seem like you're not following along.
Yeah, you don't want to look stupid.
Right. So
Yeah.
you just kind of nod and pretend like you understand.
You smile enough.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if you don't ask questions when you're confused,
Right.
you're not going to learn.
Yeah.
And you're going to miss out on important information.
And it can lead to misunderstandings, too.
It can, yeah, absolutely.
So what's the best way to go about this?
Well, first of all, remember that asking questions is not a sign of weakness.
Yeah, it's a sign of wanting to learn.
It's a sign of wanting to learn, exactly. It shows that you're engaged and you're interested.
Right.
And don't be afraid to interrupt.
Okay.
You know, it's perfectly fine to say, excuse me, can you repeat that? Or, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean.
Yeah, or what does that word mean?
What does that word mean? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
And if you need further clarification, don't hesitate to ask for it.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's much better to be clear than to be confused.
that's true. Okay, so the next bad habit is believing that you're too old to learn.
Yes. The age myth.
The age myth, right? It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking that kids are just natural language learners
Right.
and that adults are kind of past their prime, but it's not true.
Yeah, science has actually shown that
It
adults have
Right.
unique advantages
Exactly.
when it comes to language learning.
We have life experience.
Right.
We have learning strategies.
Yeah.
We have a better understanding of grammar.
So we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to kids.
No, not at all.
Okay.
We should be focusing on our own strengths and our own progress.
Yeah, and celebrating every milestone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the last bad habit that the video talks about is inconsistent practice.
Oh, the classic.
The classic, right? I think we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there.
You know, life gets busy, and it's easy to let our language learning slide.
It's so easy.
But consistency is key.
Consistency is key, absolutely.
If you want to make real progress.
It's like anything else in life. If you want to get good at something, you have to practice regularly.
Right? It's like going to the gym.
Exactly.
You can't just go once a month and expect to see results.
No, you have to make it a habit. So how do we make language learning a habit?
Well, I think the best way is to find ways to make it fun and enjoyable.
Okay.
So instead of viewing it as a chore,
Yeah.
think about it as something that you get to do, something that you look forward to.
Okay.
You know, watch a show in English, listen to music in English,
Yeah.
read a book in English, chat with friends in English.
Yeah.
You know, find ways to incorporate English into your daily life.
And make it something that you do every day.
Every day, even if it's just for a few minutes,
Okay.
it's better to do a little bit every day than to try to cram a lot in all at once.
So consistency trumps intensity.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome advice.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about 9 common bad habits that can hinder your English learning progress.
Yeah.
And we've given you some actionable tips on how to overcome those habits.
Yes. Very actionable.
And develop habits that will help you to achieve your fluency goals.
So what's the key takeaway here?
I think the key takeaway is that you're not alone. Everybody makes these mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
The important thing is to be aware of these habits
Yeah.
and to be proactive about changing them.
Yes. And to remember that it's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's not a destination.
Exactly.
So just keep practicing, keep learning,
And have fun.
and have fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been really insightful. I feel like I've learned a lot,
Me too.
and I hope our listeners have as well.
I hope so.
So we're going to wrap it up there for today,
Okay.
but make sure to tune in next time
Yes.
for more deep dives into the world of language learning.
We'll have more great tips and advice for you.
All right, see you then.
Like,
It really is all about finding what works for you, isn't it?
yeah.
But
Absolutely.
there's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning.
No, definitely not.
So it's just about experimenting and seeing what clicks for you.
Exactly. And being patient with yourself.
Yeah, that's key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a journey,
It is not a race.
not a
Yep.
sprint. It's a marathon.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah, we want those quick results.
We do.
But language learning takes time,
It does.
and it takes effort.
And it takes dedication.
Yeah.
But it's so rewarding
Oh, it's so rewarding.
when you start to see that
Oh,
progress.
absolutely.
And when you can actually communicate with people in another language.
It opens up a whole new world.
It really does.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling discouraged, just remember why you started learning English in the first place.
Yeah,
And think about all the amazing things that you'll be able to do
exactly.
when you reach your fluency goals.
Think about the connections you can make, the places you can travel, the experiences you can have.
The movies you can watch without subtitles.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered so much.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of really important things.
And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired and motivated.
I hope so too. To continue on their English learning journeys.
Yes. Keep going. You're doing great.
You got this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
But we'll be back next time with more deep dives into the world of language learning.
So stay tuned.
All right, see you then.